And I will say, I have never had more fun in my entire banking career as I'm having right now. And part of it is working for Happy State Bank and laughing and having fun, but also being able to put together an organization that represents the values that I hold dear to me. And that is family first, community, and my job. And the folks that we've associated with at the bank all feel the same way.
Welcome everyone to LoneStarVarsity.com. This is Happy State Bank Football Fever. Zach Long with George Watson, and we have survived week 2 of high school football action on the South Plains. And George, some good games in week number 2, and then, hey, not a surprise anymore. I guess the Coronado Mustangs are 2-0.
Yeah, I don't know if you can call them a surprise anymore, it being 2-0, and you know they get to claim the city championship now. With wins over Lubbock High and Monterey, and I guess maybe you could say a bit of a surprise. But at the same time, this is a team that's kind of been building for this, a program that's kind of been building for this, and they're in a good spot right now. They get the Open District with maybe the toughest team in the district right now in San Angelo Central. And we'll talk about that more later in the program. But yeah, a good start so far for the Mustangs.
And one of the more entertaining games we actually covered last week turned into a bit of a track meet between Shallowater and Littlefield. That one ends 49-40 in favor of Shallowater.
Yeah, and considering that Jarrett Black, the outstanding running back for Shallowater, didn't even play in the second half, I think we knew both teams were going to be able to run the football, and they did. I just didn't know if we knew how high scoring it was going to be, because both teams just kept sitting there hitting big play after big play after big play, trading punches. And like we said, Black didn't play the second half, and credit Shallowater, they were able to actually get the lead, hang on to the lead, and hold off Littlefield. But I think that's a game that we both saw that those two teams are going to be there at the end of the season and are really going to be making big playoff pushes, and maybe two of the better teams in our area thus far this season.
And the clip we're actually going to show you right now is after Black injured his knee, he still managed to do this. Shallowater was in trouble here going into the half. They had about 10 seconds left, and then he does this, a 51-yard touchdown run on a slightly injured knee, so you can tell the injury didn't hamper him too much. That is one tough dude.
Yeah, it is one tough dude, and I don't think that the injury is going to hurt him too much. Talked with Kyle Maxfield this week. He said it's just a mild sprain. He was hoping to practice on Tuesday, and I don't know, if he'll be able to go on for Midland Greenwood this week. But I don't think it's going to be an injury that's going to keep him out for a long period of the season. I think they probably will be cautious with this and make sure that he's ready to go for district play.
Onward to some of the other good performances from week 1, I guess, as they officially call it in high school football. George, let's start with Friendship running back Grant Sandercox.
Yeah, here's a kid that, I noticed when they were scrimmaging Cooper, the first scrimmage of the season, just impressive how hard this kid hits the hole. I mean, he hits the hole at full speed, and if you don't get an arm on him or something to slow him down when he's going through the hole at the line of scrimmage, you're not going to get a hold of him until he's 4 or 5 yards into the secondary. And that's what he was, on Friday night against Odessa Permian. He would just bust through the hole, hitting whether it's the guard hole or the tackle hole. And he at the end of the game, he's sitting there with 236 yards and 3 touchdowns, and Friendship's sitting there with a 55-17 win. So just a great performance by a kid who, quite frankly, has a lot of pressure to replace DeMondrick Tucker. But right now, Friendship's going good offensively, and they're running the ball well.
How about Lubbock Cooper quarterback Stanton Keene?
Yeah, here's a kid, played quarterback for Cooper all the way up through his freshman year of high school, but it was in a different system. They've got a new coach now in Max Catwinkle. They've instituted the read option, and so it made sense to move Stanton to quarterback. They had a hole there. He played running back for them last year, had almost 1,200 yards and about 11 touchdowns rushing. But he's really taken to the quarterback spot this year. Threw for about 250 yards and a couple touchdowns, rushed for over 100 yards in their win against Snyder, and really seems to be comfortable in that offense, and really is what makes that offense go. I know they need some other kids to step up, and they will, but right now he's the straw that stirs Cooper drink for sure.
As we mentioned earlier, the Coronado Mustangs had a win last week, and how about Delexay Johnson, their defensive back?
Yeah, Delexay Johnson, interesting story here. Here's a kid who as a sophomore, was at Coronado playing on the JV. And then last year I saw him, over at Friendship. He was playing defensive back for the Tigers for his junior year. Didn't really make that much of an impact. He was kind of a role player at times, but then decided to go back to Coronado, and he's really had a big impact. First game, right out of the box, he had a fumble recovery and an interception. Then this last week, he catches a 58-yard touchdown pass and returns a punt 72 yards for a touchdown. So here's maybe one of the better all-around athletes on the South Plains, and a big reason why Coronado's 2-0 right now.
George, let's go ahead and take a look at our AJ Media Top 5, and just like last week, I see a fresh face among those numbers.
Yeah, a fresh face, but it shouldn't be surprising. Post busts into the top 5 at number 5. The Antelopes have just done an outstanding job in picking up where they left off last year. They've outscored their opposition, if my math is correct, 102-7. They're 2-0. DJ Brown is running well, but they've also added a little bit of an element in the short running game in Brian Smith. He's got about a couple hundred yards and 6 touchdowns, and doing a lot of those, I believe, on the goal line. So it's really a good 1-2 punch. 4 posts. They've got a solid quarterback in Pate Jones, and then they're playing well defensively. So I think they'll get a good test with Slayton this week, but so far so good for the Antelopes.
And the rest of it stays pretty solid there. George, New Deal, Shallow Water, Estacado, and of course the Friendship Tigers, who they quite frankly drilled Odessa Permian last week.
Yeah, they did. I came away from that game and I was like, you know what, folks, people in Odessa may not like to hear this, but the Odessa Permian of old is gone and it's never coming back. They've got a long way to come back, after watching them on Friday night against Friendship. Friendship is a good team, but Friendship did to what Odessa Permian, what good teams are supposed to do to teams that are rebuilding. Permian may eventually get back to being a solid program and a playoff program, but right now they're not anywhere near that. They've got a lot of questions, and right now, it wouldn't surprise me if Permian, struggles to finish in the top, 6 or 7 in that district. I think in that district in 2-5A now, it's going to be wide open. But yeah, right now Friendship definitely the strongest team in our area.
Let's move on now to our Happy State Bank Players of the Week. We'll start first with our female athlete of the week. Hey, this name looks familiar, George. Mary Beth Sandercox, Friendship Volleyball.
Yeah, I had to make you say Sandercox twice in this episode.
I did really good, didn't I?
Yeah, you did. Mary Beth, just like Grant had an outstanding day this weekend, Friendship on Saturday beat Dumas for the first time in what Coach Jennifer McCulley told me was a school history. Dumas, one of the perennial powers in volleyball up in the Panhandle. Of course, who isn't a perennial power in volleyball in the Panhandle? But the Tigers went up to Dumas, beat Dumas, and I think that's going to give them a lot of confidence. Mary Beth, just a sophomore, playing middle blocker, but she played an integral part, had 18 kills and several blocks. So yeah, she's going to be an integral part of what Friendship does going forward from here on out.
Our male athlete of the week, we spoke a little bit about earlier, Stanton Keene from Cooper.
Yeah, talking with Stanton, it's interesting as good a numbers as he's putting up. His one deal that he talked to me about that he really wants to try to work on is going through his reads and not just taking off, because his natural running ability, that instinct kind of kicks in and he wants to just take off and run with the football. But as we can see, he can throw the football. He had 246 yards and a couple touchdowns. So yeah, he's slowly rounding into one of the better all-around dual threat quarterbacks on the South Plains, and if he can keep going through his reads from 1 to 2 to 3, with the weapons he has out there, there's no telling how good he's going to be by the end of the season.
Let's bid farewell to last week's slate and take a gander at what do we call this one? Week 2, which is technically week 3 of high school football in Texas.
I get it. Some people don't get it, but I get it.
Well, and I'm never going to get it because it's dumb. All right, let's look at this week's games. We've got some good ones. George, let's pick 9 real quick. Let's start it first with Monterey at El Paso Americas.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a tough road for Monterey. I thought after seeing Coronado, I thought they just had some correctable mistakes that they could get done and get worked out. But then they go down to Odessa and it's 42-7, 42-3 before they can really take a breath out there. And so I think there's some issues that Monterey has on the offensive and defensive lines that they're going to have to continue to work through. It may end up one of those years where they sit in there, maybe 1-4, 0-5 through district or non-district before they can get to district and will be better in district. But I just don't see Monterey being able to go on the road against Americas and win this game. I'm going to take Americas in this one.
Let's stay with the El Paso vicinity here. Friendship at El Dorado.
Yeah, El Dorado, slowly one of the better programs in El Paso, kind of coming up. They've played Monterey and played them in the playoffs here in the last couple of years. But I think Friendship's probably just going to have too much. I think the way they went out and beat Permian on Friday gives them just a tremendous load of confidence. Not only Grant Sandercock's running the ball, Ronald Awatt ran the ball well, and Trevor Eulenbach threw the ball very well, and then the defense just played lights out again. So I don't see any reason why they won't do that again going up to El Paso. I want to take the Tigers in this one.
Lubbock High and Coach Strunk make the short journey down Highway 87 to visit Lubbock Cooper.
Yeah, if he was spitting nails after the loss to Canyon after week 1, I can only imagine how big of a tirade he might have been on after losing to Coronado. Of course, his friendship with Coach Jackson might have prevented that a little bit and somewhat. But yeah, Lubbock High sitting there 0-2, and I know he had high hopes for this program going into this year. They just haven't shown it yet. They've been giving up some big plays defensively, giving up some points defensively, and now they're going up against a Cooper team that finally has that black cloud of 1-point losses off of it now, and being at home field, this is going to be a tough one for Lubbock High, but I think Cooper welcomes them in and wins another close game. I'm going to go with the Pirates in this one.
This next contest, last year's version, all it needed was a bag of peanuts and an elephant to be a full-blown circus. Estacado at Caprock.
Yeah, Estacado at Caprock. This is an interesting one in the fact that Estacado had the week off because of their scheduling quirks and how they had to work some things. Their bye actually came last week, so they've actually had more than a week to work on this. They won't have 2 full weeks because they're actually playing on Thursday. So they've got to go up in Caprock, and anybody that's not interested in the Tech game, can go up to Amarillo and watch this one and can watch Robert Johnson. I think probably run all over Caprock. Caprock is not the same Caprock. They graduated their top receiver Bustos and their quarterback Guerrero from last year. They're still able to put up some offense, but I just don't know if they're going to be able to put up enough offense for Estacado being able to control the run game. I like the Matadors going up there and winning this one.
Non-district matchup up here next. Midland Greenwood visits Shallowater.
Yeah, this one wasn't much of a game. Last year in Greenwood, Shallowater pretty much ran all over them. Depending on the health of Jarek Black, depending on how much he plays, he could play a half and they could put this one away early. Or if he doesn't play, it could be a little bit bigger of a game. But I think I like Shallowater's balance in this, in that Wes McCutcheon is really playing well at quarterback after moving in from Plainview, and he's really distributing the ball well. They had a couple of touchdown passes against Littlefield, a team that really plays tough defense as well. So I think Shallowater, whether Black plays or not, I think they go on the road and pick this one.
This next game is one of those ones we like to call an indicator game because it could give a lot of insight into what's going to happen the rest of the season with these two teams. Tahoka at Roosevelt.
Yeah, very intriguing game this week between the Bulldogs and the Eagles. Roosevelt, I know, has been sitting there struggling, trying to get the consistency, and I think they found it last week in Dimmitt, beating Dimmitt about 30 points and scoring 63 to do it. That's the kind of game that I think Coach Pointer's been looking for from his offense, from his whole team as a whole. But then you're sitting there looking at Tahoka, and Tahoka's picked up a couple of pretty good wins this year. So this is going to be one of the better, closer games, I think, on the South Plains. But in the end, I think the confidence that Roosevelt got from being able to move the football and score some points is going to serve them. And I'm going to take the Eagles in a close one on this one.
This next game features the newest member of our AJ Media Top 5, Slayton at Post.
Yeah, another, maybe one of the more intriguing or the better games in the lower classifications. You got 2-0 Slayton, and Coach Terry has just done an outstanding job. He's got that program going in the right direction. And then you got 2-0 Post and Coach Smith. They picked up where they left off last year. They're 2-0 as well. So it's two teams that are really kind of different. Post is going to sit there and run the wing tee. They're going to pound it at you. Slayton's going to sit there and run the spread, and they've got a very good dual quarterback in Bryce Whaley and some good athletes around him. But I think in the end, Post's ability to control the game with the running game and being at home, I'm going to go with the Antelopes in a close one on this one.
Have fun picking this next one, George. Idalou at Littlefield.
Yeah, how ticked off are the Littlefield Wildcats going to be going into this one? And but at the same time, they can't sit there and let their emotions get to them because they've got a very tough Idalou team that's also 2-0 coming in, and two teams that are going to run the football pretty well. We said this last week with Shallowater and Littlefield that to get there early because the running game was going to dictate. I think this one will probably be the same way. I don't think there's going to be as many big plays, but I like the way that Littlefield came off. They played well. They lost by 9 points to a very good 3A team. I'm going to go with Littlefield at home in a close one. I'm going to take the home field Wildcats in this one.
the last one in our lovely group of Pick 9 here. Quietly one of the more vicious rivalries in our area. Floyd Data visits Lockney.
Yeah, it's the Floyd County War is kind of waned off a little bit, but both teams I know are looking for better things, and both teams are kind of on the upswing. Both of them have had some positive stuff to their season. Both have had some negatives, but two teams I think are pretty equal. This is one of those that you hate to use the cliche, but throw the records, throw everything else out the window.
And you did.
Yeah, and you did. This just comes down to want to and hard. And in this one, I think I'm going to take Floyd Data. I think the Whirlwinds get this one.
There's our quick Pick 9. Let's now move on to our Happy State Bank game of the week. The aforementioned Coronado Mustangs, they host a offensive powerhouse in San Angelo Central.
Yeah, offensive powerhouse is correct. This team has just been on a tear these first 2 weeks of the season. Scored 71 points in their first game against El Paso Franklin. Scored 84 against Menlo, California here this last week. And they had a 50-13 lead by the end of the first quarter. That's how, and they didn't even play their starters after the first quarter.
Wow.
So that's how dominant that San Angelo Central was going into this game. And that's going to be an interesting dynamic if Central is going to be fresh enough and going to have their timing down enough after their starters have set for 3 quarters. Because I guarantee you, Coronado's going to come out. They're going to establish the run. They're not going to let Central go out and put their subs in by halftime. That's for sure. Coronado's out there playing with a lot of confidence right now. With their running game and they're playing stout defense. Central's given up some points. But like Coach Davis told me at this morning out at Central, he said a lot of those, because he put in his second and third teamers in the second quarter, a lot of the points they gave up to Menlo were by the second teamers and stuff like that. A lot of the points they gave up to Franklin were on big plays. Franklin had 5 plays, 4 passes, and a run of 50-plus yards for touchdowns. So they got that short up. The first-team defense for Central only gave up 7 points last week. So this is going to be a knockdown, drag-out. In the end, though, I think Central's probably just going to have a little bit too much offense and be able to play defense well enough to hold Coronado off. This is a 28-17 game in San Angelo last year. I'm looking kind of for the same game. I'm thinking probably maybe about a 35-24 game, but I think the Bobcats come in and take this one.
Either way, should be a highly entertaining game, so go ahead and meander out to Lowry Field at Plains Capital Park on Friday night.
Yep.
Good little break after the Tech game on Thursday. George, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Happy State Bank Football Fever. Lots of good coverage coming their way. We're going to be out at Coronado, San Angelo Central, Lubbock, and Cooper, as well as Slayton Post. Good trio of games you can read all about at LoneStarVarsity.com and LubbockOnline.com. For George Watson, I'm Zach Long. We'll see you out there Friday.